Hello and a very good evening. You're watching the news tonight on Rajya Sabha television with me, Frank Pereira. Here are the headlines. Prime Minister urges media to make efforts to maintain credibility, thanks organizations for proactive role in the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, while reminding them that editorial freedom must be used in public interest. Centre's emissary to Kashmir, Dineshwar Sharma, starts dialogue with various groups in the state. PDP-BJP-led government expresses optimism on the outcome, criticizes Hurriyat's absence from talks. On the penultimate day of campaigning in Himachal Pradesh, rivals BJP and Congress hold public rallies in various parts of the state. Both parties seek votes on the planks of development and anti-corruption. And US President Donald Trump calls a Texas shooting the result of a mental health problem at the highest level. 26 people were killed in a shooting at a church gathering in Sutherland Springs. Well, Prime Minister Narendra Modi was on a day-long visit to Tamil Nadu today. He addressed the 75th anniversary celebrations of Tamil daily Dinatanthi, during which he called on the media to do more to maintain credibility. In a surprise development, he also called on ailing DMK patriarch M. Karunanidhi.
Editorial freedom should be used in public interest. That's the word of advice Prime Minister Narendra Modi has for the media. Speaking at the 75th anniversary celebrations of Tamil daily Dinatanthi, the Prime Minister called on media organizations to make an extra effort to maintain credibility.
Editorial freedom must be used wisely in public interest. Equally, the freedom to write and to decide what is to be written does not include the freedom to be less than accurate or factually incorrect.
The Prime Minister said the freedom to write does not reduce the importance to be accurate and correct, adding that though media outlets may be owned by the private sector, they serve a public purpose.
Even though media may be owned by private individuals, it serves a public purpose. As scholars say, it is an instrument to produce reform through peace rather than by force. Hence, it has as much social accountability as the elected government or the judiciary. And its conduct must be equally above board.
He also thanked the media for their proactive role in the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. However, he urged them to spread more awareness about climate change. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi met DMK Supremo M. Karunanidhi at the latter's residence in Chennai and inquired about his health. Modi was welcomed by DMK Working President and Karunanidhi's son M.K. Stalin. The Prime Minister was accompanied by Governor Banwarilal Purohit, Defence Minister Nirmala Sitharaman and other dignitaries. 93-year-old Karunanidhi is recovering from a long illness and recently made his first public appearance in the months at an exhibition in Chennai. The Prime Minister was in Chennai to attend several functions, including a local newspaper celebration of 75 years. His visit to Karunanidhi's home was announced at the last minute. Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday assured the Tamil Nadu government of all possible assistance from the centre as he discussed the aftermath of the heavy floods in the state with Chief Minister Edappadi K. Palaniswamy in Chennai. The Prime Minister also expressed grief over the rain-related deaths over the last few days. 9 people died across the state in the recent spell of heavy rain. Chennai, Kanchipuram, Tiruvallur, Kadalur and Nagapattinam bore the brunt of the monsoon fury, with torrential rains inundating low-lying areas. Normal life remained affected in these coastal districts as the active northeast monsoon has brought torrential downpour since last week. Schools across many districts like Nagapattinam, Tiruvallur and others remained shut. Meanwhile, the Regional Weather Office forecast more rains in southern Tamil Nadu and Karaikal in Puducherry. The Weather Office also forecast occasional spells of rains for Chennai. Well, the centre's emissary for Kashmir, Dineshwar Sharma, is in Kashmir today for a dialogue with various political leaders, student groups and youth. While the opposition Congress feels that the move will not yield results, the PDP-BJP-led state government expressed optimism. Dineshwar Sharma was appointed special representative on October 23rd by the centre to hold talks on a solution to the Kashmir problem.
The government's special representative for Kashmir, Dineshwar Sharma, arrived in the valley on a 5-day tour. Soon after reaching, Sharma met representatives of local groups and social organizations who welcomed the centre's move.
ये महसूस करते हैं कि जो हमारी बात है उसका हल निकलता नहीं है, लेकिन आखिर हमें बात तो करनी है, बात को हमने छुपाना नहीं है। जब हम कहते रहेंगे तो बात बढ़ती रहेगी, बात चलती रहेगी।
हम चाहते हैं कि ये बातचीत खाली बातचीत न हो, इसके नताइज बाज़ाब्ता सामने आ जाए, उसी के हम बिल्कुल मुतमनी हैं, हम उसी के हक में हैं।
The Congress and the National Conference have demanded that the centre prepare a proper roadmap with all concerned stakeholders.
हर एक से बातचीत करनी है, बातचीत किस सिलसिले में करनी है, उसका मैंडेट तो सामने आए। जब मैंडेट सामने आएगा तब जो इसमें स्टेक होल्डर्स हैं, जो मुख्तलिफ सियासी जमातें हैं, तो वो अपना रद्द-ए-अमल जाहिर कर सकते हैं।
The PDP-BJP-led government, on the other hand, says it is optimistic about the centre's move, even as it criticized Hurriyat Conference absence during talks.
कई प्रकार का प्रेशर उन पर होगा, इस कारण से वो कर रहे होंगे, लेकिन अल्टीमेटली उनको ये समझना पड़ेगा कि देखिए जम्मू कश्मीर की जनता और खासतौर पर कश्मीर के लोग जो हैं अभी जो है इस प्रकार की बातों में विश्वास नहीं रखते।
सस्टेन डायलॉग मीन्स कि आप जो कहें उसके बावजूद बातचीत होगी। सो दिस इज फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम एन इंस्टीट्यूशनलाइज्ड अ स्ट्रक्चर्ड डायलॉग। इसमें बात होगी, कभी बाधाएं भी आ सकती हैं, कभी हमें उम्मीद है कि ठीक भी हो सकता है।
Dineshwar Sharma is a former chief of the Intelligence Bureau and will spend 3 days in the Kashmir Valley and 2 days in Jammu. During this time, he will also hold talks with Governor N. Vora, Chief Minister Mehbooba Mufti and various other delegations.
इनपुट्स हैं, इंफॉर्मेशन आई है कि ये हो सकता है, हिट एंड रन ग्रेनेड थ्रोइंग हो सकती है, तो उसके लिए हमने अपने ट्रूप्स को अलर्ट किया।
Security arrangements have been tightened in the valley for Sharma's visit. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, let's now get you some election-related news from the poll-bound states of Himachal and Gujarat in verdict 2017. Launching a scathing attack on the ruling Congress in Himachal Pradesh as Kunihar, Home Minister Rajnath Singh said wherever the Congress comes to power, development gets lost. The Home Minister also said that the BJP-led government at the centre does not discriminate even if some other party rules the state. He said that his party's politics was about looking people in the eye and not about duping them.
लेकिन हिंदुस्तान के सभी राज्यों में जहां पर भाजपा शासित सरकारें हैं, वहां के विकास दर को, ग्रोथ रेट को उठाकर कोई देख ले, वहां के सड़कों के हालात को देख ले। इन कांग्रेस की जहां भी हुकूमत होती है, विकास खो जाता है।
Union Minister Smriti Irani also addressed several rallies in Himachal where she criticized poor state of law and order. In another rally in Solan, Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath likened the state government to Mafia Raj and asked people to end it.
हिमाचल प्रदेश में बिगड़ती कानून व्यवस्था से आज ये आक्रोश प्रदेश की जनता के दिलों में साफ नजर आती है और यही आक्रोश की वजह से जनता 9 तारीख को घर के बाहर आएगी, कमल का बटन दबाएगी और एक बार फिर जयराम ठाकुर को हिमाचल की विधानसभा में ले जाएगी।
यहाँ के पर्यटन को बढ़ावा देने की बजाय कांग्रेस ने यहाँ माफियाओं को बढ़ावा दिया। यहाँ के बागवानी को और यहाँ के खेती किसानी को आगे बढ़ाने की बजाय कांग्रेस ने माफिया को बढ़ावा दिया। और इसलिए भाइयों बहनों, कांग्रेस 10 वर्ष में हिमाचल प्रदेश को देती है मात्र 20,000 करोड़ रुपए और भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने 3 वर्ष में दिए हैं हिमाचल प्रदेश को 40,600 करोड़ रुपए।
The Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi campaigned extensively for his party in Himachal Pradesh. He addressed 3 rallies in Chamba, Kangra and Sirmoor a day before the high-voltage campaign ends for the November 9th election. Let's listen in to what Rahul told the voters.
Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi addressed multiple rallies in poll-bound Himachal Pradesh on Monday. Attacking the government over issues of demonetization and GST, he said farmers and traders are suffering the most.
पूरा का पूरा कैश काला धन नहीं होता है और पूरा का पूरा काला धन कैश में नहीं होता है। नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने पहले कहा था कि काला धन स्विस बैंक अकाउंट में और जमीन में है। पता नहीं क्या कारण था, गरीब लोगों के पीछे पड़ गए।
Comparing the poll-bound states of Himachal Pradesh and Gujarat, Rahul said the Congress government in Himachal had done a better job in terms of development.
हिमाचल प्रदेश में 14,000 लोगों को नौकरी मिली, गुजरात में 7,000, मतलब यहां का आधा। यहां बेरोजगारी भत्ता हम 1,000 रुपए का देते हैं, गुजरात में देते ही नहीं। मेडिकल कॉलेज हमने 4 खोले, छोटा सा प्रदेश है, गुजरात बहुत बड़ा प्रदेश है, हमने 4 खोले, उन्होंने एक भी नहीं।
The 68 constituencies in the hill state of Himachal Pradesh will go to polls on the 9th of November. The extensive campaigning for the polls will come to an end on Tuesday. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
While Congress and BJP are fighting to garner every individual vote for their respective candidates, smaller parties like CPM, CPI and BSP along with some independents are working to put a spanner in their works. This report by Akhilesh Suman.
CPIM and CPI and some independents are fighting on 19 seats in the state out of a total of 68. The two left parties have good influence in their respective constituencies. In a tug-of-war situation between the Congress and the BJP, they may win or get sizable number of votes. The two left parties are raising the issues of regularization of jobs and land for poor in forest fringe areas, along with farmers' issues in creating avenues of employment.
अभी हम जो है वो 7 सीटों पर जो है वो कड़े मुकाबले में हैं और हम उम्मीद करते हैं कि भाई हम जो है इन सीटों पर जो है जीत कर आएंगे।
The BSP has fielded more than 35 candidates. However, they will support the left candidates in a few seats without going into a formal alliance. Since Dalits are around 25% in the state, they are expected to get sizable number of votes in each constituency.
उम्मीद करते हैं कि ज़्यादा तो वोट शेयर हमारे को दलित तबकों का मिलेगा, क्योंकि हिमाचल प्रदेश में जैसा कि आपको मालूम है यहाँ पर 25% आबादी जो है दलितों की है।
The main agenda of the BSP is to push for reservation and promotion. The move is to consolidate their votes for better percentage in the wake of their loss in Uttar Pradesh.
हमारी क्योंकि नीतियाँ हमारी हिमाचल प्रदेश में लो, चाहे हम राष्ट्रीय लेवल पर बहुजन समाज पार्टी की तो एक ही नीति है, सर्वजन हिताय सर्वजन सुखाय। हमारी अपील तो तमाम जनता से है, क्योंकि हम एक ऐसे समाज की स्थापना के लिए या ऐसे देश प्रदेश की स्थापना के लिए यहाँ पर काम कर रहे हैं।
BSP has larger influence in the plains where the BJP is stronger. Left parties have influence in many pockets in plains and the hills. The votes they get in this largely polarized situation will affect either the BJP or the Congress in their respective constituencies.
Chief Minister Birabhadra Singh has always been skeptical about the movements by the left forces in the state, and that is why he did not allow any direct students' union election in the Himachal universities. It will be interesting to see that how far left forces and the BSP cuts his fortune, and it will be interesting also to see that whether they are going to cut anti-incumbency votes of BJP. Akhilesh Suman for Rajya Sabha Television with camera person DK Pandey and Sudhanshu in Shimla.
Well, Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu on Monday said that education must build character and promote good conduct. Interacting with students of the Adi Kavi Nanayya University in Rajamundry district of Andhra Pradesh, the Vice President laid the foundation stones for a few university colleges.
Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu underscored the need for education as a means to enlighten and empower individuals and not merely to get jobs. Emphasizing its role in building character, caliber and capacity, The Vice President said education also promotes good conduct. He made these remarks in an address at Adikavi Nananya University in Rajamundry, Andhra Pradesh. The Vice President spoke about the need to raise educational standards and increasing the professional competence of teachers. He also explained the importance of learning the mother tongue before learning other languages.
Continuous professional upgradation is the need of the hour. We have to take urgent action in this regard. We must make our students acquire knowledge, skills and values that will give them necessary confidence, character to take on the challenges contemporary world of work. Now we are living in LPG, liberalization, privatization, globalization.
The Vice President laid the foundation stones for the Arts College and University Botanical Garden on the occasion. He also inaugurated the Amenities Centre and the NTR Convention Centre. Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister N. Chandrababu and other dignitaries were also present on the occasion. Navikram Singh's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, here's a roundup now of some other news from across the country and nationwide. Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar today stated that 50% reservation for backward classes should be provided in the private sector jobs and has called for a national debate on it. While the National Commission for Backward Classes had suggested enacting a law to make private firms set aside jobs for marginalized sections, the government earlier this year denied any move to introduce reservations in the private sector. The Tirunelveli District Court granted bail to cartoonist G. Bala today. He was arrested on Sunday for a caricature of Tamil Nadu Chief Minister E. Palaniswamy, where he criticized the Chief Minister and the government for their inability to prevent a labourer's family from committing suicide. Bala's arrest by the Special Tirunelveli District Crime Branch Police team had led to an uproar on social media and criticism by opposition parties and various media organizations of the state. At least 30 children have died in the past 48 hours at Baba Raghav Das Medical College in Gorakhpur. Of these, 15 deaths took place in the neonatal intensive care unit and 15 in the intensive care unit. Dr. D.K. Srivastava, head of the Department of Community Medicine, confirmed the deaths. This is the same Gorakhpur hospital where more than 60 children had died in a span of 6 days. Well, let's now shift focus to some international news, where US President Donald Trump called the Texas shooting a horrific incident in the state's history. Condemning the attack, he said that the mass killing was the result of a mental health problem at the highest level. On Sunday, at least 26 people were killed in a shooting at a church in the small town of Sutherland Springs in Texas.
US President Donald Trump on Monday said the worst mass shooting in the modern history of Texas is not a gun situation. Trump, who's on a tour of Asia, added that the gunman was a deranged individual, denying that guns were to blame for the shooting. Trump's remark came after a gunman killed at least 26 worshippers and wounded 20 others at a church in southeast Texas on Sunday.
Health is your problem here. This was a very, based on preliminary reports, very deranged individual, a lot of problems over a long period of time. We have a lot of mental health problems in our country, as do other countries. But this isn't a guns situation. I mean, we could go into it, but it's a little bit soon to go into it.
The state, we are dealing with the largest mass shooting in our state's history. There's so many families who've lost family members, fathers, mothers, sons, and daughters. The tragedy, of course, is worsened by the fact that it occurred in a church, a place of worship, where these people were innocently gunned down. We mourn their loss, but we support their family members.
The attack happened at the First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs, a small town in Wilson County. The massacre has sparked renewed calls for tighter gun control laws in the U.S. The suspected gunman, identified as 26-year-old Devin Kelly, was later found dead in his vehicle some miles away. Reports say that he was fired on by a local resident after the shooting. Kelly was discharged from the U.S. Air Force in 2014 following a court-martial for assaulting his wife and child. The motive for the killings, however, is not clear.
The suspect has not been completely identified. We believe he's a young white male, maybe in his early 20s. He was dressed in all black tactical type gear.
Shock that somebody would decide, of all places, this small little church. Why this church? Why would you do this to people like that are just praying? They're just worshiping. Why would you attack them on something on a Sunday when they're defenseless?
Meanwhile, a candlelight vigil was held for the victims. The shooting comes just a month after a gunman in Las Vegas opened fire on an outdoor music festival, killing 58 people. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
All news on Donald Trump's Japan visit now. US President and First Lady Melania Trump were accorded a ceremonial welcome by Japanese Premier Shinzo Abe and First Lady of Japan Aki Abe at the State Guest House Gardens today. Both leaders later spoke about improving diplomatic and trade ties. Trump warned that the time for strategic patience with North Korea is over. He also described North Korea's nuclear program as a threat to the civilized world and international peace. Trump said Japan could shoot North Korean missiles out of the sky with military equipment bought from the US. The Japanese premier said his country could intercept missiles if necessary. Earlier, Trump visited a US air base near Tokyo and met American business where he publicly criticized Japan over its trade deficit. Trump's tour of Asia is the longest by an American president since George Bush in 1992. Besides Japan, he will visit South Korea, China, Vietnam and the Philippines.
We're making tremendous progress, I believe, on trade in particular, bringing the deficits down and having a very fair and equal trade. And I look forward to finishing up the discussions. A lot of great work and great friendships have been built, and they will continue to be built. Thank you very much. Thank you.
この首脳会談では引き続き国際情勢また経済問題、二国間関係について議論したいと思います。
Well, here's a roundup of some other news from across the world in Global Buzz. South Korea imposed unilateral sanctions on 18 North Koreans, barring any financial transactions between those who were sanctioned and any South Korean. All 18 individuals on whom the South Korean sanctions were imposed were directly affiliated to North Korean banks. The South Korean government believes that the move will contribute in blocking North Korea's main sources of foreign exchange. The announcement came a day prior to US President Trump's visit to Seoul as part of his 12-day Asia tour. A Belgian judge granted conditional release to sacked Catalan leader Carles Puigdemont and 4 of his ministers. The group is scheduled to appear at court within 15 days. Puigdemont, who turned himself in to Belgian police after Spain issued a European arrest warrant for rebellion and misuse of public funds, is barred from leaving Belgium without a judge's consent. Saudi Arabia's future king tightened his grip on power through an anti-corruption purge by arresting royals, ministers and investors, including billionaire Al-Walid bin Talal, who is one of the kingdom's most prominent businessmen. Prince Al-Walid, a nephew of the king and owner of investment firm Kingdom Holding, which invests in firms such as Citigroup and Twitter, was among 11 princes, 4 ministers and tens of former ministers who were detained. China launched 2 Beidou-3 satellites into space via a single carrier rocket to support its global navigation and positioning network. This was the first duo of Beidou-3 satellites launched by China. Beidou project is named after the Chinese term for the plow or the Big Dipper constellation. China plans to build Beidou into a global positioning and navigation system by 2020, making it the third country in the world after the United States and Russia to operate its own navigation system. Well, let's now shift focus and bring you up to speed with some news from the world of sports in SportsBeat. Anish Banwala won a silver in the men's 25-meter rapid-fire pistol event, while Neeraj Kumar bagged a bronze for India at the Commonwealth Shooting Championships in Gold Coast, Australia. The two medals took India's tally in the rifle and pistol events to 16 medals, which includes 4 gold. In the women's rifle event, Scotland's Sinead McIntosh won gold with a score of 459.9. England's Katie Gleeson bagged silver and Singapore's Martina Veloso won bronze. India's Gayatri finished 4th with a score of 429.7. Ace Indian boxers El Sarita Devi, Sonia Lathar and Lovlina Borgohain entered the semi-finals in the Asian Women's Boxing Championships at Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. Former world champion Sarita Devi defeated Maftoon Akhun Meliva of Uzbekistan in the 64-kilogram category. Sonia beat Kazakhstan's Nazim Ishanova in the 57-kilogram category. In another match, Borgohain defeated her Mongolian opponent in the 69-kilogram category. The Indian women's hockey team qualified for next year's World Cup after winning the Asia Cup hockey title in Kakamigahara in Japan. Goalkeeper Savita produced a brilliant save in the shootout as India became continental champions after a gap of 13 years. After the teams were locked 1 apiece in regulation time, skipper Rani Rampal converted the final attempt for the Indians to ensure a 5-4 win in the Kawasaki Stadium in Japan. In tennis, America's Jack Sock has qualified for the ATP Tour Finals after defeating Serbia's Filip Krajinovic by 7-6-4, 6-1 in the Paris Masters final. While Krajinovic won the first set 7-5, Sock came back to clinch the second. Sock took the last qualifying spot for the ATP Tour Finals in London after Argentina's Juan Martín del Potro and compatriot John Isner were defeated in the tournament. That's it on this newscast. Good night.